Good morning, everyone. Okay, it's time for the deep dive. I was up early because I get very excited about notes, and here's my problem. I really feel like I have to be honest with you. My mind works like a hologram now, and that's not good news. But pretty soon yours will too, and that's not good news for you. I thought I would start with a little story this morning, two of them actually, maybe a few more, because I want to illustrate one of the points that in this workshop, the theme is jewels of the soul. And every jewel is something I want you to think of, a little pouch that you can pull out for the rest of your life, and like a lens, something that will help you see the whole of your life differently when you need that particular jewel. And years ago, here's an idea of a jewel. One of the jewels is the power of a perception. The power of one perception. The power of one thought form to hold you. The power of a thought form to control you, to hold you captive. Okay, and I'll explain all of this in a second, but first I just want to tell a story about that. And it was, in a sense, the experience where I really got it. So I can tell someone, like the conversation I've had several times with someone I love very, very dearly, who's been, I would have to say, traumatized by an experience she had in middle school. And that experience has her prisoner, where she was, rejected by her peers. And that experience has her traumatized. And she can't get out of that perception. It's a memory, it's a trauma, and she can't get out of it. Now, Buddha would say that's an illusion. And I can't get her up to this level where she realizes she just has to puncture it and it goes away. It's a bully. She just has to puncture it like a bubble. And her whole universe the whole universe that's built around that one perception will evaporate. Someone who knew this was Catherine the Great. Catherine the Great used to say to her close courtiers that one of the reasons she dressed in jewels and presented herself the way she did, she said, I don't need this. She said, but everybody else does, because I must create the image that I am greater than them. Otherwise, they'll realize I'm only a human being. So she knew she was in the business of creating an illusion. When I moved to New Hampshire, this is so crazy when I think of it. I rented a farm, I rented a home, and I got a job in 46 minutes. 46 minutes, is that not outrageous? I mean, who could do that? But I did it. And so, and to my detriment, because I went in, I got hired through a friend at a public relations office, and then I had to get someplace to live. So that PR office was right down the block from a real estate firm. So I walked right in and I said, I need a place to live. And I'm in a village of 800 people. And I think if I'd really realized where I was, I would have screamed, but I walk in and she said, well, there's a place available. We get in the car, we drive up a hill, all the way up County Road, and I see this little Cape Cod cottage, the cutest little thing you ever saw. And we drove in this gravel driveway. She opens up the front door, and of course it's all decorated, as cute as a Martha Stewart thing. And I said, oh, I'll take it. So it was as simple as that. I didn't even think to ask, how do you heat this place? Duh. Right, and I was from Chicago. I mean, we don't have to worry, we turn on heat. It never occurred to me, logs. Whoever heard of logs, right? Whoever heard of wood? I mean, I don't know. So I am there 6 weeks. And I look out the window and I see a barn. And I think to myself, barn, farm, farm, barn. And I call the real estate person. And I said, do I have a house with a front lawn? And when I look out one window, it's a house with a front lawn. And I look out the back, and it's a farm with a barn. And she says, you rented a 40-acre farm. And I get hysterical. And I said, no, I'm from Chicago. I can't live on a farm. I'm from Chicago. I can't live on a farm. I can't live on a farm. I can't live on a farm. And I printed it like a mantra. And she goes silent, and she said, but you rented a farm. And I froze. And then I stood there, and it was surreal to me because I thought, a second ago I wasn't frightened. And I looked out this window, and this window, it was a house with a front lawn. And this window, it was a 40-acre farm with a barn. This window was a house with a front lawn. I stood there for probably 3 hours. And I couldn't get over that this window was one whole reality and this was the other. This one terrified me, this I was fine. And before I realized this, I wasn't scared. If I looked this way, I was terrified. If I looked this way, I was calm and fine. And I couldn't get over that. I couldn't get over, so I kept doing this. And I realized I was doing that because I knew that the choice was bigger than this. That in fact I was experiencing shifting from one perception into another. It was actually surreal. I was shifting zones. And I was shifting realities. And that's what really hit me, that I was actually going from one reality to another, from one to another. And that I had to decide in that second which reality I was going to live in. And that this reality represented denial. That I was not living in a house with a front lawn. I was living on a farm with a barn. And so I looked at this perception, and it was so big and so foreign, but I had to step into it, and that's all there was to it. And it felt like I was stepping into this huge, big thought form, and I didn't know where it would take me, but I knew this one was small. And that's how it began to feel like. This one was small and familiar. I knew what a house with a front lawn was. And I knew the size of this thought form, and I could organize this thought form. I knew where the dishes were. You understand? But this one had I didn't even know what a farm was, and it was almost as if I was popping my head in, thinking, oh, but that was the truth. So this was denial, and then it was a bigger thing. It was denial or truth. And I can't bear denial. I can't bear it. I can't bear it. It gives me hives. So I had to do this. I had to step in. But I'm sure you heard me tell the cow story, right? You all heard that. So stepping into this unfolded gradually as you will discover yourselves, as many of you have discovered. When you step into a new thought form, you have to become familiar with its territory and all that's included in that thought form. And it has to engage consciousness with you. Because you haven't been in that thought form, so everything in it is not yet animated in your psyche. Okay, it's not animated. It has to wire in. So now I'm in the thought form. that I'm living on a farm, but there's nothing in my reality that relates to that. I have to plug it in. In other words, to say it differently, to put it in here. Here's your chakras. Until then, farm was just a word for me. I had no first, second, and third physical experience of a farm. I'd never been on a farm. Until then, I had no idea that I was on a farm. Do you see what I mean? Things are not real until they're real. And it wasn't real for me. So now I'm on a farm and I'm just barely in this column with it. Now this is a big deal to get. Because it's when you are trying to get out of a thought form, it's the reverse. It's so real to you that the idea that's illusion is a hell of a thing to break. Okay? So we'll get to what illusion is. So now I'm in the farm, but with farm comes all kinds of things. Farm equipment, barn. I'd never set foot in a barn in my life. You know, critters. Right. Okay, so one of the things, what happened was in New Hampshire, in these little towns, are all these dairy farmers. I'd never met a dairy farmer. I didn't even know what they were, right? I mean, I knew obviously what a dairy farmer was, but I'd never met one. And there was one up this road who'd been in the dairy business since before the revolution. The family went back that long on that property. His cows got out, and they clumped down the road, and they went all over my property. All right, this is a tiny country road. This guy comes barreling down the street, and he almost crashes into all these cows. He thinks they're mine. Drives into my driveway. He's on the horn, and I walk out with a cup of coffee and a Marlboro. And I was like, I'm looking at him, he's looking at me, and he says, lady, get your effing cows out of the street. And I was, what cows? Because I am still in my head. And I'm thinking, I don't have any cows. He says, what are you smoking? And I said, Marlboros. And then I look, and I see all these cows. They're everywhere. And I said, cows? I said, cows? And I'm looking, and I said, there's cows. And he says, oh, I'm out of here. I imagine he still tells that story like I tell it. And he says, oh, I'm out of here. And he takes off, right? And isn't that funny? Because you want to say, wait a minute. You don't understand. I've never been near a cow in my life. I don't know where they're from. These aren't mine. And then this farmer comes by, and this is so classic New England. Come on, girls. And they just followed him back. That's all he said. Come on, girls. And they just followed him back. But for me, as time went on, I remembered, not the cow incident, a little bit, but that whole thing of standing in my kitchen and realizing I had the choice to decide to be terrified living there or not. Terrified or not. That I had no awareness at all that in fact I was living on a farm, and that it was my choice to see a house with a front lawn or a farm with a barn. And one world scared me and the other didn't, but it was my choice. It was my choice. I will never get over that moment. That the idea of choice and perception incarnated into me in that moment. And it grew from there. There are some people in the audience here who are old and dear friends. 3 of them I had the privilege and pleasure of walking part of the Camino with last year. And there are two here, and one of whom has walked the entire Camino. And I bring that up because I had a very profound experience on the Camino last year, which is very similar to this in terms of a perception. And I'm sure that you know the Camino is the walk through Spain or the walk through Portugal, and it's that holy pilgrimage. Okay. And this walk takes you through towns, and sometimes you're walking in the woods, and other times you're walking a sidewalk right through a town. But here's the thing that I realized that was so extraordinary to me. It was so extraordinary that I still can't get over it. And it's something I want to introduce here. And that's the power of perception. And that's part of the jewel that I want you to go home with. And that's the power you have to see your life through a lens of your choice, no matter where you are at any given moment. That how you see your life or your world is in your hands and nobody else's. It's in your hands. It is not in the hands of another person unless you put it there. Unless you put it there. Unless you give someone else the power to determine how you see your life. And how you see life itself. It's in your hands. And the extent of how important this is to understand, to me, is now critical as we understand that we are in the business of not just creating your personal reality, but we are co-creating the whole of reality together. And we need to upgrade the game of consciousness and get that we are co-creating the whole together. Up until now, we simply have operated on the narcissism that we're just creating our personal reality. And we've left it at that. But that's preposterous. If we are co-creating our personal reality, we are co-creating the whole of reality. We are the engines of all that is happening. And it's time that we play by the micro and the macro rules if we intend to be effective agents of healing ourselves and the planet. And I also will introduce to you that you have to consider that the macro health of the whole is affecting your personal health. So that I have to introduce macro diagnosis to you. That we are now in a collective psychic field, and you have to understand yourself as a collective being and an individual participating in the whole in this way. That the idea that you are an individual separate from the whole is a grand illusion. You are not. It doesn't matter what neighborhood you live in. It doesn't matter what your diet is. It doesn't matter. Those are all these grand illusions that somehow or other your lifestyle can separate you from the macro. That is a preposterous notion. We are now in the macro world. So we're going to upgrade. Are you with me here? Okay. So when we're walking on the Camino with my three soul sisters. We're walking, and everyone you meet on the Camino greets everybody. Buen Camino. Blessed Camino to you. Good Camino to you. And everybody you meet is walking in the same direction. Now that's important, Because from a symbolic point of view, we really are all walking in the same direction. And that's what hit me, is that symbolically, we really are all walking in the same direction. We're all aging every day. We're all really walking in the same direction in life. And that everybody has this openness because everybody on the Camino has a kind of understanding that goes unspoken, that everybody believes in God. Because otherwise, what are you doing on the Camino? So everybody has that understanding. Everybody has the understanding that you're obviously going for some reason associated with your soul or faith. So there's that. And nobody goes with the idea of, you don't meet anybody there who's walking in entitlement or privilege. Everybody's walking. Right? Everybody's walking. And not only that, nobody I met introduced themselves through title. They were just first name and the country they're from. Now that's the way a soul introduces soul to soul. Not body titlement to body titlement. It's soul to soul. Eric, would you agree with that? It's soul to soul. Okay, now here's what I realized is, here's the Camino, say between these two lines and my sidewalk. The moment I step off the Camino, just like this, crossing this line in a town, everybody's walking everywhere and it's chaos, and nobody greets everybody. Nobody says buen camino to you. Nobody says blessed day to you. You're back in the chaos and the madness of everybody being afraid of everybody. And the moment I cross this line, everybody's going this way and nobody's afraid of anybody. So I would go like this when we would walk into town, and everybody ignores everybody. They're afraid, they're holding their bags. Here, we'd stop someplace and sit, and somebody would pull out and say, you want an orange? You want to share? They'd share. Here, and I'm telling you, you're just walking off the sidewalk. But this one was known, this is the Camino sidewalk, where everybody's walking the same way. And there's an openness and a trust and an acceptance of everybody. They're from every single country. Every single country they're from. There is no sense of, invader, foreigner, this, that, Martian, da-da-da-da. Here, there's suspicion, competition, whatever. All you got to do is cross this line. I couldn't get over that. It's as simple as crossing the line and realizing we're all walking the same way. We're all walking. And I met somebody who said, I had to get back to this path. I had to get back to this. And I knew what he was talking about. Even in my little brief experience with the Camino, I knew that he was talking about this. I have to get back to people walking the same way. I had to get back to that feeling of not being afraid of other human beings, of not being suspicious, of not carrying that inbred hostility toward other people, that they're going to take more than me, that they're going to get there first, wherever there is, that they're going to have more than me because I'm a hoarder of stuff. Where on this path you share, on this path you take. On this path you give. On this path you are afraid that you don't have enough. And this is the path people want to get back to. I can't wait to get back here. This is the path that feels soul, S-O-U-L, soul normal. Soul normal. I'm so normal here. I just feel so normal. And it just like I can breathe here. I'm not afraid of it. Everybody looks so normal to me, so human. I can talk to anyone, and there is no hesitation of greeting anybody. That's humanity. And it was one step away. That's what I couldn't get over. I just had to step. I just had to make a step. It was that simple. I still can't get over that. One perception, one step. Okay. So off we go. I still can't get over that. I don't think I'll ever get over that. Okay. I don't want to get over that. Okay. Okay. These are drawings a lot of you who have been with me are familiar. I don't have any others. It's probably a good thing. I want to just explain this for those of you because I'll be referring to this. All of you know this drawing, all right? And you all know that when I'm doing a reading that you anchor yourself. But the relationship, the equation that I need you to have in your head is that, because you're going to go after your anchors in this workshop, is that every anchor you have creates psychic weight. And that the more weight you have equals weight. How much time? And this is actually how you create your relationship to time. This is how you create a relationship to time. How much time it takes for you to heal, to process something, is based on the number of anchors you have. So I'm going to present this. This is very, I don't do complicated. Okay, now, here's a thesis. I can't draw a straight line, but, okay. This is where we are today. This will explain it. No, it does. It does. This is horizontal. This is vertical. Horizontal is hour by hour by hour, day by day time. This is watch time. This is vertical time. Thought into form this fast. This is how Jesus worked. This is how Buddha worked. This is how instantaneous healing works. This is when you are not attached, when you have your energy in present time, thought goes into form at the speed of light. This is the speed of your intuition or guidance. And what happens when you receive guidance is that energy hits you in the 10th, and it comes in, and what you do is you decide the speed at which you want to comprehend something. And like me standing in my kitchen, you decide how fast you want to comprehend the truth. If I couldn't handle being on a farm, I would stick with the idea that I have a house with a front lawn. And I would figure out a way to not look at the barn. I would tell myself, that's not a barn. That's a big second house. And it's not really on my property. I would create a narrative. Do you see what I mean? Because I can't bear to look at the barn, because a barn means a farm. And I would keep up that narrative for maybe a year until I finally could adjust to the truth that I'm living on a farm. So I would slow down the speed of that realization. So what I would do, here we go, is I'd take that perception and I would densify it. And you densify something by, let's come here, adding an illusion to it. Okay? And another way to put it, let's go to Newton, Isaac Newton. We add gravitas to it. Gravity. An illusion is gravity. And all of this is going to factor into disease. Because illusions are physical weight. And physical weight creates cell memory and densifies your cell tissue. What is an instantaneous healing? Here's medicine. And the doctor says, it's going to take you 6 weeks. So it's really effective. The doctor says, you're going to be sick for 6 weeks. Okay. What is a miracle? What is a miracle? A miracle is when something happens outside Chronos time, and it happens at Kairos time. The speed of Jesus. Jesus' speed. What happens is that the speed of light takes over the speed of matter. And it undensifies or de-densifies what's in your cell tissue and converts it back to light. And your cell becomes weightless again. You following me? Yeah. Okay, just a second. Shar, I don't know. Shar, put your hand up. Wait. How do I know that?
How do you know about de-densifying to become what? It's not a challenge.
No, how do I know that? That's a great question. Part of it is spiritual physics. It's actually logical because, it's spiritual physics in that in all the years when I was doing readings, I actually came to this Shar not through theology, but through doing readings. Years and years and years of thinking, why is there an illness in this cell tissue? And through the years of doing readings, I would pick up patterns in people that indicated to me how the density with which they held on to something and how heavy that memory was. A combination of heaviness that was psychic, emotional, but not just psychic and emotional. It was also archetypal, the density of a narrative, plus the density of knowing a narrative is not true and sticking with it. The density of knowing that you don't believe something but telling yourself you do. Now that kind of density is the fodder of cancer. Because, this is such a big deal, because the soul will always come to battle when you are lying to yourself. Nothing wakes the soul up more than the battle for truth inside of you. It's like Michael the archangel. Nothing. The soul goes to war in you when it is battling for truth. You have to understand what your soul will do to get you to wake up when you are telling yourself a lie and you're trying to live with that. When a person, look at all the teachings that say the truth will make you free. The truth sets you free. The truth. Look at how when Jesus would heal someone, he says, you're free. First, I'm going to clear out the density. He himself said that. First, I'm going to heal you of. First, I'm going to get the darkness out. And then the light comes in. Do you see? So first, a person has to get rid of their weight. And it's not, I mean, think of how you feel when you clean out a closet. And why is it that we are compelled, even criminals have to confess? They usually hang themselves because they have to tell one person they did it. Because the truth, the soul is like vomits lies. And what it is the soul is compelled to push out that which does not fit in it. Deception, deceit. And it craves the light. It craves truth. And it craves the light. And when we release it, every single time we feel light. And look at how people talk. I feel so light. I feel so light. When Padre Pio, when people went to Pio for confession, do you know who Pio is? All right, the monk, the priest in Italy. Well, I'll tell you about that in a minute. But when he said saw people for confession, they would walk out of there feeling so light that they didn't want to leave him, and they moved there because the light felt so good. After years of deception, after years of this psychic weight burdening them, I know as a spiritual director that people don't need therapy. They need confession. They don't need to complain about why people hurt them. They need to be able to say, I dwell in wanting to hurt them and I can't stop. They want that darkness out of them. And the truth is they can't get out of that perception that says, they hurt me, and are you with me here? Darkness is powerful. Powerful. Does that help you? It's the real thing. I want to position us in a cosmic way. Now, back up here. Yesterday I introduced this model very briefly. And now I'm going to go into it a little further with a little bit more depth and say that with every floor that you go up in yourself, how you see the world is going to become more challenging for you. And there may come a place where you just decide, I'm not going any further. This is as far as I go. I can't go any further. I can't change anymore. This is my max. I can't do it. That it's just too much. And you set up housekeeping here, or you set up housekeeping here. Because the rigors of what is expected in you become too much, and it changes your view of the world too much, and it changes how you have to interact with others too much, and it changes your understanding of how creation works too much. When you're down here in the first floor, the view of how you see the world is that everybody else is the problem. Everybody else. Everybody else. And so the vocabulary down here are words like blame. And here's another favorite word down here, deserve. But when you get up here, you can't take that vocabulary with you. That vocabulary has to go. You're not allowed to include that in the way you see the world anymore. You get that you can't blame anything in your life on anybody or anything. You cannot accept the doctrine of co-creation and blame at the same time. They X each other out. You can't have the doctrine or the creed of co-creation and say that you deserve anything. What do you deserve? You can't think of yourself as special or entitled, because what do you think you're entitled to? La-di-da. But you have to go into that. But in this world, you get to play by those rules. And as you rise up, you realize you have to change the rules and let go of that perception and redefine how you understand. And here's the big word, power. You have to understand power. Now, this time that we're living in is the shift that's taking place in our relationship to power is so profound that there's actually no way for me to communicate it in words that will ever measure the experience that we're living. One way to say it is that we're all getting re-educated. That the world we grew up in is no longer functional, and it's not political. It's because it's actually an illusion. We grew up believing that the physical world came before the energetic. We never even thought about our participation in the creation of events. We never even were trained or educated to imagine that we were engines of creation, that our thoughts had any power at all. Were you educated that way? Were you ever told that your emotions or your thoughts had creative consequences, not just for you as a person, but for the collective? Were you ever held accountable or told how to go home and reflect in your journal on the quality of thoughts you had that day? No. But in fact, in years to come, perhaps decades, that is going to be how we'll be educated. We'll be educated in our energy anatomy system and in our energetics, because we have crossed the Rubicon and we are in the age of energy. But we're living in this critical zone in which, while you are hearing me say that, we do not live by that. We have yet to do the kind of research that validates the energy world we are living in. Now, down here, we are certainly living in the world of energy technology, so that you spend 90% of your time hooked up technically to this energy world. You are addicted to it. So you're already in the energy domain, technically. But it's still not real to you spiritually. It's not real to you psychically. It's not real to you in your energy anatomy. It's not real to you in your thought forms. You still don't get at all that your internet operates like your internet. You don't get that. You do not get that your thoughts move like your email. So you don't get that you receive energetic data even while you sleep. And that your immune system, your psychic immune system, is as receptive to psychic viruses as your physical immune system. That there are psychic disorders now, that there is a psychic landscape that we need to become very much aware of, that your health and well-being is no longer a matter of your 7 chakras, but of your 10. That your archetypal health and your archetypal nature is as critical for you to understand as your blood type. But we don't go there yet because we don't take our energetic anatomy system seriously at all. And yet we are totally in the age of energy. We're totally in the age of energy. You don't get how fast you hemorrhage energy and what costs you to hemorrhage energy. So you'll come home and you think, why am I exhausted? And it doesn't occur to you to check your anatomy system. It doesn't even occur to you, but that's why you're so exhausted. That's why. You don't get the exhaustion of being around a certain atmosphere, or perhaps living a contradiction and how toxic that is, or perhaps getting an intuitive hit and then telling yourself you're not going to operate on it. Going into denial, knowing you were told something, but deciding to create an alternative reality and densify it so you don't have to live it, so you don't have to follow through with it. And you don't get what it means to add weight to an intuitive hit when you start lying to yourself, when you've been told to do something, when you've been directed to do something. What happens when you densify divine guidance? And how toxic that is. So let me go over here for a minute because I want to add something that's really important, or comment on something that's really important. I added the astrological ages to this for a reason. Let me go over here. Now, all of you, I'm sure, have seen the way I teach the chakras in these 3 columns before. What I added here was in your 1st, 2nd, and 3rd chakra under the age of Aries, the 4th, 5th, 6th, and where did I put 7? Wait a minute, I did this wrong, excuse me. Let me just reshape this. 7 goes here, and then the bridge, and then 8, 9, 10. So 4, 5, 6, and 7 under Pisces, and 8, 9, 10 under Aquarius. And each age is roughly 2,000 years. Now, all right, stick with me here. You're about to go on an adventure. Visitors. Hey. A few seconds ago, I was saying to you that as you go up your inner journey, you may come to a floor where you say, that's as far as I'm going. The penthouse is, of course, what I would call like the great view. But when you get up to the penthouse, I'm going to describe, because I'm going to ask you to kind of see if you can hang out in the penthouse sometimes. But the penthouse is a view where you are disconnected from who you are, that you have no attachment to what you believe, to defending your position, to where you grew up, to who you are. You're just in neutral. You're wide open. You're not emotional about anything. You're not Catholic, you're not Protestant, you're not atheist, you're not agnostic, you're nothing. You're simply a cosmic, wide open being. You don't have an agenda. You don't have an agenda. You are impersonal. You're not a female, you're not a male. You have no history, you're not wounded, you're not unwounded. You're simply a cosmic being. So that no matter what I say, you're not going to put your dukes up. Or not. You don't need Christmas, you're not a Christian, you're not Jewish, you're not Buddhist, you're not a Hindu, you're not Muslim, you're not anything. Because down here you realize that's basically a costume party. You are those things temporarily. It's an outfit for an incarnation. I love being Catholic, but who knows what I'll be next lifetime? Who knows what I was once upon a time? It's here today, gone tomorrow. And I'm well aware that God is not a Catholic. Okay, so let's get the story straight. Okay, so as you get up to the penthouse, you realize that this universe belongs to no God, but one source. You realize that you are here for one of many lifetimes. You're neither male nor female. You simply have a body, and your life is very short. So getting attached to any one country, getting attached to your identity, getting attached to any one wound is a foolish thing to do. You have no idea how many journeys you've been on or what those journeys have to teach you. You have no idea. So getting attached to any one of them. So your object is to understand what evolution is, how the system works, and to become a participant in the system, to understand the structure. Because you are to understand the rules and the structure. That's what's important up here. It's the rules and the structure. The organization of life is to play by the rules, not to bend the rules for you. When you get down here, you see how the people that I hear people say, the theory behind what I've heard so many, you know, how someone will remark that we should control nature. I can't imagine a greater sin than the idea that we should control nature. And it's precisely that perception that has begun to do so much damage. You don't control nature. Do you know how big nature is? It's the size of all our galaxies. It's the order of the universe. It's the nature of God. Okay, so when I get you up to the penthouse, you're open to the way this universe works without an agenda. Can we go there? Can we open a door? It's getting very warm in here. Do you think it's warm? Yeah. It's getting very warm and stuffy in here. I'm afraid to open it back here. Okay. Okay. So, now, let's go here. So, there was a time when I read the holy books, scriptures, et cetera, and I would read them more like literally. But it occurred to me that much later, that scriptural, that there was something that made sacred literature sacred. And it's different than reading an ordinary book. What makes sacred literature sacred? And actually, I'm going to tie this into a book that I wrote, Invisible Acts of Power. And when I asked people to submit stories to me of how people were of service to them, the thing about those stories was that they moved me so much that what people were telling me were stories about how other people affected their lives spontaneously, about how they never expected people to be so special and the long-term effect other people had on them. And as I was reading these stories about the miraculous intervention of other people in their lives, and as I was reading these stories, it occurred to me that so many people had these spontaneous interventions of God in their life, or what appeared to be angels. And I thought, oh my God, it's like people's lives they were still experiencing exactly what the Old Testament described as these visitations by angels. And so I thought that's very interesting. And the second thing that occurred to me was that as I read these stories, they felt alive to me, as if they were still transmitting grace, that they were like human scripture, that something that made scripture alive was that it was the transmission of something that really happened, that was transmitting grace versus reading directions like a recipe. This is how you make banana bread. That there was something about these stories, okay, and that stuck with me. So how do I get this route? Because you have to kind of hang on to my coattails. A few years ago, I was given the task of teaching Pythagoras. I knew nothing about him, so I had to do a nosedive into Pythagoras. And I mean, I really, just one thing after another, I was eating his books. I fell madly in love with Pythagoras. And there's a reason I'm telling you this. Pythagoras goes back to the age of Aries. We're back here. And he was the first mathematician. I'm sorry? Right? And the thing about Pythagoras was that he lived in the era of the Old Testament and the Greek mystery schools. And there was a time, and what occurred to me was that in your first, second, and third chakras, and this era of Abraham, and this era of the Ten Commandments, and this era of Pythagoras, this was the era of law. When the divine revealed law, just law, the nature of law, the order of the universe. This was the time of Lucretius, when he wrote a book called The Nature of All Things. A Roman. Do you know that book? The Nature of All Things. When he described the universe as energy and matter 2,500 years ago. 2,500 years ago. Now, the thing is about this era was, I thought, how extraordinary, really, What is it about this time zone 2,500 years ago? And that's that this was an era, and this is going to feed into this and to healing, so stick with me. This was an era, I think, if you read the scripture back then, when Abram said he was visited by angels. And he said, go feed them. And the Canaanites, when the Israelites had to fight the Canaanites, they had, 144,000 angels materialized to help them. And I thought to myself, I wonder if that really happened. And I think now something did happen. I think Passover happened as they said they did. An angel came down and slaughtered some people and said, get these kids out of Israel, out of Egypt. The reason I'm saying this is because I think in this era, there was a different relationship between energy and matter. I think it was an era in which it was more energetic than matter. We densified more in Pisces, and we're returning to this energetic age. I think that in this era of law, the rules of how creation worked were revealed. It was an age of revelation. It was an age where Pythagoras received mathematics. Rules were being revealed of order and structure in China and Asia. Buddha. That this physical world is illusion. This is how it works. Walk the middle way. Nature is the law. All the laws, it was totally impersonal. Learn the laws. Learn the laws of nature. Learn what your laws are in your nature. Learn how to manage your nature. Learn how to manage your nature. These laws were all external. They were all external. And our relationship, we were nature. We were never told, control nature. These were the laws of our nature and all nature, and we were one with this system. And Pythagoras talked about the mathematics, but what I saw when I studied Pythagoras was how the mathematics of our biospiritual mechanism, what one was according to him, if you applied the mathematics of how he saw numbers 1 through 10 in the chakra system, you would see the mathematics of your body very differently. You are a mathematical system. Your heart beats mathematics. Your eyes are mathematical. Everything about us, blood pressure is mathematical. You are a mathematical system of life. You go into puberty, mathematical. You go into menopause, everything. Birth is mathematical. Gestation, everything about us is a mathematical system. Everything. If I could teach you Pythagoras in a biospiritual mechanism, and you would see, and I think, although I cannot do this yet, that there are calculations with Pythagoras about the speed at which you lose your life force by your attachments. I can't factor that. I don't know how to do it, but I believe that is because we are mathematical.
Can you repeat that? The speed by which we lose by attachments?
No, the speed at which we lose our life force at a microcosmic level through our attachments because we are mathematical. It has to be so. Right. Because everything is about choice and consequence, magnetic attraction, gravity, illusion, absolutely everything. And the one thing that doesn't have speed of loss is love. Okay, so look, here's an attachment. Here, what are you attached to where you're losing power?
Sure. It is physical matter.
Sure,
Yes,
sure it's
you're
not
right.
in
No, matter. It's
No, no.
external.
But, okay, but maybe
Oh.
this is too personal a question.
Okay.
Somebody, do you have an issue with it? Where do you lose your temper?
Oh, good question.
Oh, come on.
No.
What ego thing gets you? Oh, come on.
No, honestly, treated unfairly, even
Okay,
if it's
what's
not
unfair
mine.
to you? What's unfair to you? That's too general. Give me an unfairness thing.
Crossing the line with people.
Okay, but-
I lose it.
What, say?
Crossing the line.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
Meaning crossing boundaries.
Okay, in what way is it cross a boundary?
It
Explain
could
that.
be verbal. It could be. I mean.
Okay, so
anyway.
give me a verbal thing. Because here's,
Oh.
you're going to do a book for me in a minute. What?
Oh, okay. I'll help. Just kidding.
I'm not.
Okay. Okay, I see this every day, and I'll tell you how I lose it. When I see someone treated unfairly, and
Okay.
it could be me as well.
No, it's
I
only
lose
you I'm
it.
caring about.
Yes.
when you
No,
decide-
actually, even people I don't care
No,
about.
Oh, yeah, right.
No, seriously.
All right,
No.
I got it.
Okay.
I got it. So
Okay.
unfairness, injustice.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, stop. Got it. But I'm going to pinpoint it later a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay, so what I believe, but I don't know how to calculate this, and I don't, but it's got to be so, is that when you see an incident, so here's someone being treated unjustly. Here's that person. It's you,
Sure.
okay? And not only are you being treated unjustly by your definition, that person who does that walks away.
Here's where I lose it.
And now you lose it.
Yes.
But the it you're losing is this, your life force. You just described it. I lose it. What's the it you're losing? This is what you're losing. So your life force goes, and you attach to that experience. You attach to it. It's now draining, and my calculations, which are always correct, is that it hits you, it goes from your mind, but where you are actually hemorrhaging is your third chakra and your second, because injustice is third and second. Here. It's not here. It's not here. She didn't break your heart. They don't break your heart. They piss you off. And that's here. It's weaponry, and it's ego. How dare they? So it's down there. So it's going to be a second and
Okay,
third.
hold on. I'm sorry. So I don't look at injustice as how dare they. It's not that way. I don't. Injustice is injustice.
Right.
It's not treating people
Right.
right.
But it's still down here. It's still unfairness. It's still
Correct.
unjust. And justice is first and second chakra. It's law. But remember that it's according to you. It's subjective. How do you know what's justice? It's justice according to you. All right?
Well, no, I think that's a general understanding
No,
of mean.
no, sorry, no. This is where Buddha says it's illusion. You don't know. So, this holy man, this enlightened avatar, is visited by this little bodhisattva apprentice who says, I'm enlightened. I know everything. Can I travel with you? And he says, under one condition, and that's that you keep your mouth shut. And that you never comment on anything I teach or do. You never argue with me. Can you do that? And he says, absolutely. He says, oh, good. So off they go. And they visit this town, and the town has a lake by it. And the storm comes up, and they see a man trying to get to shore, screaming for help. And the enlightened man just stands there, and he lets him drown. But the bodhisattva apprentice can't bear it, and thinks how unfair, how unjust, how terrible. And he says, why didn't you save him? How could you? You, this great avatar. And he says, I thought I told you to keep your mouth shut. And you're questioning me. You who think you know so much about justice. I told you. Don't question me. And off they go to the next town. And in the next town, they're sitting there having dinner and all this food, one thing after another, because they're so happy to see this avatar. And this man who's starving comes up and says, please, please feed me. And he says, no, I'm not going to feed you. Go away. All this food, and this starving man begs again. He says, no, go away. Well, this is too much for him. How can you not feed him? How can you not? And he says, again? You're questioning me? He says, no. He says, well, you know that man that you thought, why didn't I save him in that boat? He said he had a knife in his pocket. He was going to slaughter 6 people. And you wanted me to save him. And he would have killed half the village if I had done what you wanted because of your sense of justice. And this man here you wanted me to feed, he let his whole family starve because he fed himself so much. And it is God's will now that he feel because of his family. And you want me to feed him because you can't bear it. Because it's your idea of justice. Because you can't bear the thought of going hungry. No. This is how he's going to learn. No. You don't question how God has ordered the universe. Like Yahweh said to Job, who are you to question the order? What we have to understand is we have in our head the idea of what is just and fair. And the only thing we can do is operate with justice and do what we can in our own lives to operate with absolute integrity.
I agree.
Absolute integrity within our own lives, right. And where that leads us in every moment.
But what if you see it outside of yourself? Do you not do anything?
No.
Doesn't that cross the line of
Yes,
insensitivity?
no, yes, but here's where you can let go of your fifth chakra.
Okay.
Here's where what we have to protect ourselves from doing, and it's very, very, very difficult, is that I do not know what else is going on in the greater atmosphere or what else is unfolding. I don't know who these players are. I don't know the force that brought them together. That's what I cannot judge. So I will do what I can to make this better to the best of my extent, to the best of my ability.
I agree.
Do you see?
Yes.
Okay.
So going back to the injustice.
That's in
Okay.
time. Okay. Time. Thanks. Okay, we're going to have a break, but you can ask me one question, and then we'll go to break. What? Wait, I need a mic. You know, when you ask a question, I must beg you to wait for a microphone.
At one point, could you give a specific example of like how Pythagoras is like in our body? Because that one, I don't have any.
Pythagoras, how's
Yes.
he? Okay, do you know
Like-
who Pythagoras is?
Yes.
The
I
great
mean,
mathematician.
yeah.
Okay, so for Pythagoras, numbers were not numbers. They were archetypes and living beings. So that, number one, is a new concept. Now, that is come up here. That is a cosmic concept. For an ordinary mortal, a number is a number, but not for Pythagoras. For Pythagoras, they were living creatures.
Yes.
I think that alone is so great big huge, I can hardly stay in my body. Number one was whole. So it wasn't number one. Number one was whole. It was, but what does whole mean? Pythagoras would lecture on what does whole mean? Understanding what it means to be a whole being. It was round. It was the circle. It was to be a part of a circle, to understand the whole orbit of a circle. It was to be a part of the whole, which means that two cut the circle in half. So when you get to the number two, you now have division. It's not two. Now you have opposite. Now you have polarity. Now you have aggression. Now you have right and wrong, good and bad, up and down. Now you have magnetics. So it's not just two. Now you have dynamism that you don't have in one. Okay, so put that in your second chakra, and you have power plays. And you have a way of thinking that in fact is exactly what the crisis of consciousness is about right now, because what I said yesterday is the way we are thinking now is polarity thinking can no longer sustain us to solve the problems that we are now. This is problems and this is predicaments. The predicaments that are facing our global community. Because in the number two, if I'm in the number two, I have to be right, you have to be wrong. I have to win, you have to lose. Okay? So this duality is no longer able, this way of thinking, to problem solve for the whole global village. We have to find a new paradigm in which even if where two opposing point of views can coexist. And that is a higher number, a different mental geometry, a five-pointed star, a different concept in our biological, oh God, say it right, a different biology. If I get to a higher number, then what that does is it activates different energetic circuitry in me, higher energetic circuits. When I'm operating only in duality, no, it's not okay. Pay attention to me. Jesus and Buddha had higher frequencies with Pythagoras, higher numbers. God, Carol, say this right. Okay. You've asked too big a question. Jesus and Buddha took external laws and internalized them. So in this era, this was a tribal era, and all the people were learning laws on the outside. Okay, the 10 Commandments, social laws to civilize. Then come Jesus and Buddha, the two biggies. And Buddha gets the 6th chakra, Jesus gets the 4th. And they say, now we take the laws and they go behind the eye. So you take all the laws and now you have to live them individually, which is why Jesus said, never mind the temple, you're going to go straight to the Father, which was so threatening to the Sanhedrin and the Pharisees. He says, you're going to go straight to the Father now. You don't need the temple. You're going to go inside. And he says, our Father. And Buddha says, come sit, and it's up to you to figure out the illusions and learn to work and to work with the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. We'll go into that, but not this morning. And you have to work and open your interior. Okay? And this is all I'm going to say about this. Part of what the Catholic Church did is that it took these teachings of Jesus and it kept it in the second chakra. So instead of letting it explode into the cosmic Christ, it reduced it to the second sexuality and male and female, genital this and that, and it never, ever, ever had the opportunity to really bust through into the power of what forgiveness was. And they made forgiveness about sacrifice instead of the mystical, which I'll teach, the mystical power. But what's happening now is the Christ consciousness is busting out. And the Buddha consciousness is busting out. And we're busting out. Okay. Break time.